think we should. Okay, we are live.
Okay, the Thursday, July 9, 2020 virtual regular meeting of the Brisbane Planning Commission will now come to order. This virtual meeting is compliant with the Governor's Executive Order N-29-20 issued on March 17, 2020, allowing for deviation of teleconference rules required by the Brown Act. Consistent with the order, this format provides a safe environment for staff, commissioners, and the public while allowing for open participation. This meeting is being broadcast on Comcast Channel 27 and the city's YouTube channel at youtube.com/BrisbaneCA. The agenda materials may be viewed online at brisbaneca.org. All written comments submitted in advance of the meeting have already been provided to the Commission. For those who did not provide written comments, a call-in telephone number was provided on the agenda, which can be viewed online. The phone number and instructions will also be provided during the meeting. Staff, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gomez.
Here.
Commissioner Gooding.
Here.
Commissioner Mackin.
Here.
Commissioner Patel is absent for the moment. Commissioner Sayasan.
Here. Adoption of the agenda. May I have a motion to adopt, please?
So moved.
Second. I second.
And staff, can we conduct a voice vote?
Commissioner Gomez.
Aye.
Commissioner Gooding.
Aye.
Commissioner Mackin.
Aye.
Commissioner Sayasan.
Aye, we have 4 ayes. Okay, next is the consent calendar. If there is any member of the public who would like to pull an item from the consent calendar, please contact us within the next 30 seconds. Staff will post the text and call number on the screen.
Okay, I've posted the number on the screen, and we have 30 seconds. Timer started for 30 seconds.
Okay, while we're waiting, is there any commissioner who would like to remove an item from the calendar?
30 seconds has passed. Sorry.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
It appears that Commissioner Patel may have joined the meeting. You may want to confirm that.
Commissioner Patel, welcome. Hello?
Hello, sorry, I was having connection issues. I apologize.
No problem.
And
Glad
now
you're
it's
here.
frozen. I'm sorry.
Okay, now we're we'll move to I believe I have to we need a motion to adopt the consent calendar. May I have a motion?
I make a motion.
Okay, second? Okay, staff, can you do the voice vote?
Commissioner Gomez.
Aye.
Commissioner Gooding.
Aye.
Commissioner Mackin.
Aye.
Commissioner Patel.
Hi.
Commissioner Sayasan.
Aye, motion passes. Oral communications. If there is any member of the public who wishes to address the Commission about an item that's not on tonight's agenda, please call or text within the next 3 minutes. Staff will display the contact numbers on the screen.
Okay, we've started a timer for 2 minutes.
Oh, 2 minutes.
Sorry.
And while we're waiting, we'll turn to written. Okay. While we're waiting, we'll turn to written communications. We received one email from Brisbane resident Paul Buscal concerning the matter of tonight's agenda. General Plan Conformity GPC-1-20. Staff, do we have any other written communications?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, 1 minute warning. Okay, 2 minutes has elapsed. And we do not have any callers. And I assume we have not received any texts.
Correct.
Okay, great. Now we'll turn to the next item, which is our review of General Plan Conformity GPC-1-20. It's General Plan Crocker Park TC Sub Area. General Plan Conformity Review of the City of Brisbane's disposition of certain real property at the western edge of the Crocker Park Sub Area, totaling approximately 2,800 square feet. Staff, may we have the presentation?
Thank you, Chair. So this is an item that was continued from 2 meetings ago because there were some correspondences that were not provided to the Commission. They are attached to the staff report. This item is not a hearing regarding the sale of the city-owned property, but it's a review of the general plan conformity as it relates to the location, extent, size, scale, and purpose of such conveyance per Government Code Section 65402. The City Council will be considering any proposed sale at a public meeting later this year. This is a location map of the property showing it on the western edge of the Crocker Park area. You can see it's the pink zone there. That is trade commercial. The subject parcel and the surrounding parcels are all zoned TC1 and have a land use of trade commercial. Here's an aerial map. It shows the 28,000 square foot subject property is located along the city border with the San Bruno State Park to the south. The surrounding uses are mostly transportation companies or event resources and management. The subject property is adjacent to Frito-Lay's sales, which is just to the north. And the subject property is landlocked. There's no direct access to the street there. The draft purchase and sale agreement is proposing the city sells the 28,000 square foot parcel to Frito-Lay Sales, and Frito-Lay Sales will then grant an easement on both their existing property to the north and on the new property, so it creates a pathway that goes from Westhill Drive or Westhill Place to the trails of the San Bruno State Park. So per the Government Code, the Planning Commission is reviewing if the location, extent, and purpose of such disposition of city-owned property conforms with the GP. The policies listed here fall into 2 categories. One would be to allow economic development that benefits the community through jobs and or revenues. This is going to be policy 8 and CP3 on the list here. The other would be that it connects Brisbane to regional destinations or natural areas for the benefit of current and future residents. The disposition of this subject property would allow FLS to expand at that location if they desired, and they would be subject to design review at that junction. And it would provide or sustain the local economic development within the city. If you recall from the aerial, any future development would be in line with the neighboring parcels. It's not extending any further into the state park. It would also provide a dedicated pedestrian pathway that is only about 1,000 feet from the existing Crocker Park Recreation Trail. It's going to connect to the San Bruno Mountain State and County Park and its trail network. That's a benefit for residents. We do recommend general plan conformance of this item. Are there any questions?
Sorry about that. No questions. Commissioner Gooding, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. Jeremiah, a couple questions. As I understand it, am I correct that at this point, the only scope of review or sort of purview of this commission is to determine whether or not the proposed conveyance or transfer would be in conformity with the general plan?
That's correct.
And assuming for a moment that we did that, it then goes to the council, correct?
Yes, the council is the one that's going to be making the determination of actual sale of property.
And when it does that, will that be an agendized item with the opportunity for public hearing and comment?
It's supposed to be a public hearing.
Okay. So the proposed sale will not become final unless and until the council holds a public hearing. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's not going to be final tonight in any way.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Patel?
Jeremiah, the proposed benefit is that there's going to be a trail that goes into San Bruno Mountain. Is that right? Is that what you said?
That's what if you want to say what the city would get out of the deal, they're going to have a dedicated hiking path or trail that goes from Brisbane to the state park there.
Why can't we do that anyways?
Well, the parcel that's owned by the city does not front any street. It's landlocked. So in order to get that trail, you would need access through the FLS property that's just to the north of it, which they are providing an easement, dedicated easement as part of the sale on their existing property.
Okay, so that's a benefit that we can't get without going into this deal.
Correct.
Okay, just was wondering. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Mackin?
Yes, I have this nice bright ray of sunshine shining at me here, which will be going away soon. It's not divine inspiration. So, Jeremiah, could you tell me, there was a reference in correspondence from Ms. Dilworth to surplus property. Do you know, has this land been declared surplus property?
No, we do not know. That's a determination that council is going to be making.
That'll come up through the city attorney will advise the council of the procedures and whether or not it's exempt from the Surplus Land Act or not. And that determination will be made by the city attorney.
All right, that's fair enough. And I will reserve the rest for comments.
Okay, anybody else? Commissioner Gooding?
Yeah, I have one follow-up question, and maybe it might be helpful. If it's helpful to you, you can bring up the slide again about showing where the parcel is. I'm not totally clear whether and how creation of a hiking path within that little parcel by Frito-Lay would connect to anything. The slide shown doesn't really show what's on the other ends of the proposed easement / proposed path. Can you explain a little bit about whether or not this actually let me ask this way. If Frito-Lay got the property from the council, did what they proposed to do about the hiking path, what would be connected to what by virtue of this transaction?
So the path would connect to the street. It's not connecting to any existing, or not directly connecting to any existing trail in the city, but the Crocker Park trail system is only 1,000 feet away, that existing kind of walking loop. So it is close proximity there. And then the trail goes from the street into the state park and their trail network system.
So on the slide that you showed that showed the proposed completed hiking path, on the lower left, I guess the southwest of that slide, does that connect to anything?
Which end? Toward the state park or towards the? I can
put the slide back up, and I can sound. Okay. There we go. That's the one. So if you look at the far left of this slide, where the proposed path takes a little jog south, I guess, yeah, south, and then ends at the end of the slide. What if anything does that connect to?
It's difficult to see, but if you look at the aerial map here, kind of in that general area, there's a faint trail, walking path. If you look at the kind of the very southwest corner of the subject property, you can almost see that curved line. That's roughly where the trail would terminate. Yeah. And this concept here, it's not a site plan, it's just a concept showing the approximate location of the trail.
So is it proposed by FLS that looking at this slide, that the southwest terminus of this hiking path actually connect to an existing trail or existing path?
That would be part of the TSA, which is still being worked on.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question.
Oh, yes. Did someone have a question?
Commissioner Patel does, but he's muted.
Oh, you're muted, Commissioner Patel.
Unmute. Sorry. So the Planning Commission needs to approve this particular measure, right? That's what you're saying, for it to go to the City Council?
Right. The first step in a city or municipality selling city-owned land is to have the Planning Commission confirm the general plan conformity.
My question is how would this not conform to the general plan?
If the zoning designation or the land use were in conflict or not matching, or if the parcel was smaller than what would be allowed, but there's no conflict between the size and the land use designation.
So if there's no conflict, then why would you need the Planning Commission to approve it? Is it procedural?
It's procedural. It's in government code.
Okay, so there's nothing that conflicts with what's required for it to move forward?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Mackin?
I have just another question I thought of. Jeremiah, could you tell me what was the rationale behind this particular spot to connect to the mountain?
I could not speak to that.
Okay, and could you verify or disqualify information that I found from someone that this is part of a larger property that the city owns that is a contiguous piece of property that encircles the entire industrial park? But this is one segment.
Well, there has not been a title report furnished to the city that would disclose the ownership history. So we do not know if it's one part of an entire loop or not.
Okay, because I have some information I would share with everyone.
Did you want to save that for discussions, Commissioner Mackin? Okay. Okay, anybody else? Okay, Commissioner Gooding?
Yeah, sorry, one more thing. Do you have information at this point about It's my general understanding from your materials that this was a parcel of property that was not donated but sold at a very low cost to the city some time ago. Do we have information? Does the commission have access to information about any terms of that transaction, or whether there was any intended purpose of the use of this land arising from that transaction? Was it donated for a particular purpose? Was it for open space? Was it dedicated for anything? Was it purposed for anything?
No, that would, I think, be part of the title report, given the history of the property, of any deed restrictions or conditions, and that has not yet been furnished to the city.
Do you know if and when the assuming we find that it's in conformance with the general plan, would the council be provided with that information before making a final decision on the sale?
It's very typical to have a title report before any transaction is made of land. It should be something that the buyer and seller request.
But this belongs to the city right now, right?
Correct.
Wouldn't the city already have the information as to what the history of acquisition of this land is?
They might have the current or more recent, but the long-standing history of previous ownership. That's what the title report is going to show. Who it came from before the city, and at what time.
Okay, alrighty. Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Oh, Commissioner Patel?
So you have stated that this is in general compliance with whatever the general plan is, but are there multiple general plans for this area? Because it seems as though this area borders environmentally protected areas that are natural and wildlife sanctuary.
It's not part of the HCP.
What does that mean?
The Habitat Conservation Plan for the San Bruno Mountains, it's not within there. It is just within the city boundary of Brisbane. There's one general plan. The sub area is TC, but there's no other plan or overlay zone in this area.
Is that it, Commissioner Patel?
Yeah, I'm not.
Anyone else? Okay. Do you have any more comments, Commissioner Patel? No? Okay. Anyone else? Okay, then we'll invite public comment. Give folks a couple minutes to call in for comment.
And through the chair, could we make sure that all the commissioners receive that correspondence and have viewed it? I don't know if Commissioner Patel was here for your comments about written communication. I want to confirm that all the commissioners saw that.
Yes, Commissioner Patel, did you receive Paul Buscal's email to us concerning this matter?
I did. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, great.
And through the chair, how long would we like to? We have a 5-minute limit for each caller. How long would we like to wait for calls to come in?
Let's give them, 3 minutes.
Okay.
And I guess while we're waiting, I guess I can read Mr. Buscal's email. It's very short, so I'll just take the time to read it and put it in the record. So Mr. Buscal writes, Honorable Commissioners, regarding the sale of this property, when the city acquired the rail system, it was to be used for recreational opportunities. The loop portion has been dedicated for walking, biking, and equestrian access. When the parcel that Shanky Bakery was purchased, it's my understanding that the monies were going to improve the loop trail and that the easement that Frito-Lay's could provide was to be installed, quote, benefit to the community. Neither one were ever implemented. The fact that the parcel Frito-Lay's wants to purchase does not encroach into the San Bruno Mountain State and County Park is why Shanky was able to purchase theirs. The monies that come from the sale of Frito-Lays are allowed to purchase the parcel along with money from Shinki's purchase should go towards a robust design review with an emphasis on restoration and maintenance of the adjacent native habitat and seasonal wetlands. Okay, that was his email.
Okay. We have about 2.5 minutes left in that 5-minute window.
Was it 5 minutes or 3 minutes, Julia?
I'm sorry, 3 minutes. So that would be, let's say, 15-second warning.
Okay.
Okay, stop it there.
Okay, so we have no comments from the public. So let's, I guess, resume kind of our discussion that we were having earlier. Commissioner Mackin, you said you had more things you wanted to say?
Okay, so Mr. Paul Buscal, who sent us the last minute email, I actually called him because there were just too many things I did not understand. And I don't know if the rest of you know that Paul has been involved historically for many years with Mountain Watch. So this is a person who knows the mountain, leads hikes all over the mountain. He's spent years being the leader in that regard. And I asked him about the trailhead, is what I'll call it, the spot being proposed for the access for the public from the street through the proposed Frito-Lay property to San Bruno County Mountain Park. And I asked Paul what that trailhead would be connecting to in the park, and he said nothing. He said, what is there? He said there are old trails that are more or less decommissioned, overgrown, have never been maintained, and that he was not clear why this particular location was being designated as a trailhead, because he said, what would you be going to if there's no improved trails in the park? And he said there are other areas. Brisbane had a fire some years back on the mountain, which is in the, I think he said, Wax Myrtle Ravine, and it's at the far end of the Crocker Industrial Park. And he said that would be a more appropriate place where you could actually connect to something. He also, because I said, well, do you know how the city has this little piece of land? And he said that back in the 1970s, there were railroad spurs that came into the industrial park. It was owned by First Pacific, which got bought by Union Pacific. And when the railroads decommissioned those spurs, they asked the city if they wanted to buy them because there was hazardous waste in the form of railroad ties, which are coated with creosote. And in return, they would sell it at a low price. The city would have to deal with the railroad ties, which they did, and that the railroad said it could be turned into a trail because it's a contiguous circle around the whole industrial park. That was the original plan. Apparently, they contacted Mountain Watch 3 years ago about it, they being the city, and then nothing's ever been done with it until there's been this sale, which didn't make sense to me at first, why we got pictures from Ms. Dilworth about the Shenki Bakery, but that was the first time the council apparently sold a little segment of this property to the Shenki Bakery, and why that sale took place, I do not know. The property itself, because it's not clear from the map, is about 60 feet wide. So it's quite a large parcel that goes all the way around the industrial park. I think that that's important. And if in fact it was sold to the city at a reduced rate to be used as public land, I'm a little bit shaken as to why we're selling these little segments off. So it's just a comment. And in terms of the agreement with the general plan, the different citations in the staff report, the first one about diversifying the city's tax base, I'll agree with that. But the other different segments that are referenced in the general plan, I don't see how we go from owning a piece of property, losing it, gaining an easement, gaining a trailhead that goes nowhere is a benefit in concurrence with the general plan. Doesn't make sense to me at all. And I think that perhaps there's more information here that we don't know, which the council may know. There may be a plan for all this property that we don't know. And not seeing the original agreement for how this land was sold to the city, by a stretch, even with the easements, we could say, well, maybe it agrees with the general plan, but in looking at the different state citations about public space and selling public space, which really is not our responsibility, but I think if we're getting this first review on agreement with the general plan, do we just give up public space? It's part of a bigger hunk of space. So I don't have an answer for all of you, but it presents a bit of a dilemma to me because I think we're lacking some information to make a good decision.
Well, I would point out that the property is designated and zoned for industrial use.
And how
that
did
is what that's what the general plan, that's the basis, sorry. So that's the general plan basis of the site. If it is constrained with easement that precludes it or requires it to be maintained as open space, I would be very surprised, not being involved in the negotiation or this financial real estate transaction. I'd be very surprised if the city was moving ahead with selling property that is encumbered with the requirement that be maintained as a public open space. That's not our responsibility, but certainly the council and the city attorney and their due diligence, that would be known before they were to enter into this kind of agreement. And again, I don't know what kind of future provisions are being made as an opportunity to expand from that trailhead into the park. Again, that's something that would probably fall under the purview of the Park and Recreation Commission and the council. So again, I appreciate it's kind of unsatisfying not knowing the full story because your role in this whole sort of transaction is fairly limited. And I know that's not, we can't paint the whole picture for you because we don't have all the information for you this evening. Would flesh out the transaction because that really is the council's decision and obligation to make that determination. And what their reasoning was for selling portion of this to Shanqi, again, that was a decision made at a different time. And so there certainly is a precedent of selling part of this particular city-owned property for these industrial uses within the industrial park.
But John, something that also came to mind is if as recently as a couple years ago, the city contacted Mountain Watch about doing something about this whole trail system, why was this zone TC1, or is that just an oversight? Did everybody just forget it was there and it's just been thrown in there with the rest of the area? Because we've done a lot of rezoning, clarifying previous zoning oversights. So it looked to me like perhaps this really just, no one ever went, oh, this really should have been zoned open space.
I'm not aware of since I've been here for the 15 years, I'm not aware of any rezoning in that particular area of Proctor Park.
Right. That's true.
It just seems weird that we need to approve this when what I'm hearing from staff is that it's like cut and dry. And I just think that that's if we need to approve it, then there must be a reason why we need to approve it. And I just feel uncomfortable approving whatever.
I would suggest, if you're uncomfortable with the issue, the premise is this, it's staff's opinion, this particular proposal, and selling industrially designated parcel of property to an industrial use complies with the general plan. If you have other language and you have general plan policies you believe this action is inconsistent with, then you would need to cite those to make a different recommendation.
Commissioner Gooding, you have a comment?
Thank you very much. It's a little hard. This comment is hard to make because I'm not sure what we don't know, or what we need to know that we don't have. To Commissioner Mackin's point, if Union Pacific sold very cheaply this land to Brisbane some years ago, with any kind of constraints or designations or purposes, and I'm not sure what would have happened back then. I think that's something that would be important for either us to know or the council to know when they make a decision on the ultimate sale. I think what I'm going to restate in my view what Commissioner Mackin might have been hinting at, which is if there were any sort of purposes to which this land was dedicated or sold, this sale might not be consistent with those. We don't know because we don't have the information, but perhaps it would be feasible for the council, for us to recommend to the council that they consider that issue when they take on the issue of approving the ultimate sale. Given the fact that at this point all we have is it's zoned what it is. The city theoretically gets some benefit from a hiking path wherever it leads, but we don't have any information to rule any differently than that at this point.
John, Jeremiah, so all these questions that we have, because obviously we feel like we don't have enough information, but it seems like what you're telling us is because we don't need that information. So are we to assume that the city council will be getting everything that we're wanting because they're the ones that are going to have to make the decisions, correct?
The city council will get what they feel they need to make this decision.
So it won't necessarily be the same type of questions we're asking. Is that what you're saying?
You can make whatever recommendations you like to the council. They go above and beyond the requirements you have under the government code. And if you want to suggest that the council look into all these matters and make sure they're comfortable with those matters, that's certainly within your prerogative. If they're of concern to you and you want to make sure you get them on the record of what you're concerned that the council should be considering.
Okay, Commissioner Patel, you had a comment?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Anyone else? Commissioner Mackin?
So again, let's go back to the questions about the general plan. And if I look at the second one, is to integrate physical, social, environmental, and financial elements for the benefit of current and future residents. And this easement for a new hiking path. The new hiking path is just a tiny little connector. It's a trailhead. It connects to nothing. I don't see the benefit. Other than if we sell the property, we make some money. I mean, I'm having a hard time going, we're going to get an easement for a trailhead that goes to nothing. It just doesn't even, and then I'm being asked to say that is in keeping with the general plan, which is to ensure the recreational opportunities and public space to the public. It doesn't do that.
I would suggest that it provides an opportunity in the future, that if this does not happen, that is an opportunity that does not exist. So again, if that is not compelling to the commission, that this creates a future opportunity, it may not be an opportunity that comes to fruition tomorrow or next month or next year. But, again, there is a future opportunity that this creates.
And I will agree with that, except for the fact that we don't even know if this is where a trailhead should be established. But it seems like this community benefit of a trailhead is being used to sweeten the deal for the city, to say, well, look what you're getting. But I'm not seeing the benefit in terms of
you're not, to be just through the chair, you're not here to determine what level of community benefit makes this sale palatable. You're here to determine if it's inconsistent with the general plan or not.
And I would agree with that, John, except for the fact that part of the general plan is to ensure things like recreational opportunities. So that is relevant.
It is. And we believe that providing that opportunity, that potential future opportunity, is a potential future benefit.
I guess that's the question, though, is that benefit could be provided by the city without having to sell a piece of land to another corporation. And therefore, I think that in terms of determining whether it's consistent with the general plan or not, does this particular piece of legislation make it so it's consistent by itself? No, I don't believe that it does.
So how many policies, Jeremiah? Or have you mentioned that there's consistency?
I believe there were 6 policies listed. Let me double check.
So I would suggest, if your feeling is it is inconsistent with all those policies, then you should make a finding of inconsistency.
I would say that I would make a finding of inconsistency because
Commissioner, you would need to cite specific. This was proactive. You're saying it's inconsistent with the policy. You would have to then turn that language into that it's not doing something. It's inconsistent with policy.
Well,
I'm not going to say this isn't. No, we're not going to just say that this wash these away. You need to have some basis for that.
And that there hasn't been an analysis on the other side. So the staff can also do an analysis as to why it's inconsistent.
Staff did an analysis, consistency.
Any other comments? Okay, there's no comments. Is there any more motion? Commissioner Gooding?
Yeah, and this is nitpicky procedural again. That's my niche. The question presented to us was we must make a finding that the sale does conform to the general plan. So therefore, if we believe or if we feel or have enough opinions here that we don't have the information to make that finding that it is consistent, I'm not sure that's the same thing as requiring us to specify in what ways it is not consistent with. Am I making any sense here, John?
You are. And if that's, again, I don't know, I assume the council, I don't know what the government code says exactly, the council's ability to override the commission's recommendation and make findings. But that's a whole other story.
And I'm not right this moment. I'm not suggesting that I find that this is inconsistent with the general plan. I think some of the sentiments expressed here are that we're wishing we had some information to help us make the decision that it is consistent with the general plan. Things like, what were the terms or conditions, if any, to the original granting of this land from Union Pacific to the city, and what are the plans of either park and rec or other functions of the city to connect this hiking path to anything that actually does render a specific benefit to the city, which would be consistent with the general plan. To some extent, without some of that information, it's kind of hard to say, yes, it is consistent. Right now, the city does own that, and so if nothing happens, the city continues to own that and continues to have a potential benefit to the city by connecting it to a trail whenever folks decide that they want to connect it to a trail. I'm a little torn here about what to express in terms of an opinion to my fellow commissioners, because if the council is going to sort of review this from the get-go without anything already determined, it might suffice to simply alert them to the things that we have concerns about and qualms about as one possibility.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, is there anyone who would like to propose a motion?
I don't know what
I see that. Oh, Commissioner Gooding, did you say something?
I can't decide what to propose.
May I just enter something here?
Yes, Commissioner Madigan.
John, you pointed out the State of California Government Code Section 65402, which is included by Jeremiah in this staff report at the very end, in answer to the question, if the planning agency disapproves the disposition, the disapproval may be overruled by the local agency, which means if we were to disapprove this, the council can override our decision. So if I may, I would just say there's one point in this policy. Let me see which one. Policy 86, Chapter 7, open space states provide access to natural areas consistent with the nature of the resource. Program 86A states the city shall develop a network of trails and pathways throughout the city to provide access to open space and link to city trails with county and regional trail systems. We're not linking to anything. We're linking to a maybe someday future trail. So, I mean, sorry, it doesn't work for me.
Commissioner Gooding?
Can I ask one more thing, maybe to open up a different avenue of inquiry about this or analysis? Jeremiah or anybody else, do we know what specifically FLS wants this parcel for? There's some general comments here about it's going to increase potential revenue from employment, but are they just going to park cars here? Are they going to do work here? Are they going to, what's that land going to likely get used for, at least according to what we know from FLS?
There's no land, but presumably would like to do an expansion of their facility there.
What does that mean?
Well, with the extra land, they could expand their operations at their existing building.
But I thought the extra land was part of it's going to be used for a trail. So how much of it would go into the trail?
So if you remember from the slide, it's about 1,100 square feet is for the trail, and I think another 800 square feet on their property.
I think what's difficult here, if I can just say with this, the lack of the information we have, if we had more, we might just say, this is fine. But the lack of the information begs more questions than answers.
So if the commission were interested in continuing this matter for more information, maybe you could put together a sort of as part of your motion what exactly it is you're looking for.
Commissioner Gooding?
I have an idea about that, and I was was hoping somebody would suggest that. I hate just postponing things because that's not our job, but sometimes when we just are kind of stuck in the middle here, maybe more information will clear the logjam. My qualms are the following. Are one, whether the grant from Union Pacific to the city was either conditioned or intended or whatever, dedicated to any kind of particular uses. And secondly, whether or not the proposed hiking trail does in fact, feasibly connect to anything, even if it's an unimproved or neglected trail. I think that's it. Yeah, those are my two main points of inquiry. I'm not super satisfied that divesting the city of this piece of property really gets us back anything that is terribly useful in light of how much property we're giving up. And also, I guess one more piece is whether or not we have any information as to whether this is in fact surplus land or not, whether that's ever been determined or ruled upon, because that kind of triggers certain obligations of the Surplus Lands Act that may or may not, preempt the government code sections about land transactions.
And Jeremiah, do you think we could get a full search done by our next meeting on this, if we were to continue?
I wouldn't be able to give a timeline on the title report.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's a title search so much as some history or background on the terms of the transaction between Union Pacific and the city. Title search is all about, who really owns what and meets and bounds and where the boundaries of the land are. That's not really, I think, the concern of anybody on this commission. It's really whether or not there were any either strings or goals or aspirations attached to this property when it was given to the city. Was it supposed to be open space, that kind of thing. And if it wasn't, if the answer is, that was all silent, there wasn't anything, then we can just, rule on whether this makes sense or not. But I think those kinds of issues about open space, dedications, or intentions are relevant to conformity with the general plan, and that's why I'm being quibbly about it.
Well, ultimately, we could just vote to deny it, and they could appeal it, and they could all just do it in front of the city council, which is where it's going to take place anyways.
I guess. I'm not, maybe, I don't know. I'm not sure there's anybody to appeal at this point because there's no application or variance.
Procedurally, the city council has initiated this activity. They will see it through to a final outcome. So it would be part of a final action that the council takes. And this would be part of the consideration of their decision making.
Mr. Mackin?
Again, this Government Code 65402, if we did not vote in favor, it says right here in this code that it can be overruled by the local agency, which is the city council.
Right. I mean, ultimately, I think what we have in front of us is something that we need to vote on. We don't believe we have enough information to vote it forward, so we should vote it down, and then they can take it to the city council, and the city council can do whatever they want.
Or if you think, John, it would be a benefit for us if you think you could provide us with some of the information that we're seeking so that we could, make a more reasoned decision. Or
Well, you have time because the council doesn't meet again until September.
Okay. So, I would like, I don't know how the rest of the commissioners feel, but I would like to continue it and ask staff if they can provide us with more information, so that at least, when this goes to the city council, we're just, if we choose to deny it, we're not denying, we're denying based upon information, not the lack thereof.
I agree with that.
Okay, so does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll move. See if I can actually articulate this. I'll move to continue this matter pending receipt from staff on additional information regarding the terms of the original transaction between the railroad and the city, and any information available regarding connections between the proposed hiking path and the existing recreational pathways.
Can I just insert a word there, Doug? Let's say viable existing paths, trails in the park, because you could have something that's totally impassable and may not even be usable again. Let's say viable.
Sure. That's my motion.
Okay, second? Do you have a second?
I'll second it.
Oh, okay. Staff, can you conduct a voice vote?
Commissioner Goody?
Aye.
Commissioner Gomez?
Aye.
Commissioner Mackin?
Aye.
Commissioner Patel?
Aye.
Commissioner Saison?
Aye. That's 5 ayes. The motion passes, so this matter is continued. Okay, next item is, I'm getting feedback. Is there anybody else hearing that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's on my end, but okay, next item is items initiated by staff.
I just have one item, is the grading review that was denied by the commission last week has been appealed to the city council. So they'll be considering the appeal when they're back in session in September.
Okay, thank you. Items initiated by the commission. Commissioner Mackin?
Yes, interesting bringing up the last meeting that we had. I wondered if we had, as a commission, a collective interest in making a request to the city council through John to ask them for a review on both the appropriateness of planning commission review on grading permits, and if they feel that this is the appropriate venue to do it, that they provide us with more clarity on the criteria by which we examine grading permits, in that I anticipate we'll see more of those going forward, and then it will be important that we have a little better clarity on how to wrestle with these. But I need a consensus from my fellow commissioners if that would be something you would like to do.
I agree. What do the rest of you think?
I agree as well, but my understanding was that that wasn't in the purview of our committee. Yeah. Basically, the last application, we were told that the grading issue and how much land was taken out wasn't an issue, and we could only basically determine whether or not the tree would have been impacted or not.
Well, it seems the staff insert in the staff report, the last meeting, those guidelines on grading permits for planning commissioners were from 2003, and the current intent of today's city council may be vastly different, but I'm sure no one's really had a chance to review that, and it might be worthwhile to do so at this time going forward. We certainly have a lot of development going on, and I'd anticipate more, so it might be the appropriate time to do it.
And if I could interject something just for the commission's information, a wholesale or a comprehensive grading ordinance update was initiated a number of years ago, probably before any of you were on the commission. It got sort of stalled out at city council probably back in 2014, but it was a comprehensive rewrite of the grading ordinance I suspect we'll be touching base with the council this summer to talk about picking that up, and that would certainly one of the issues that was addressed in the various drafts that I saw back in 2013 and 2014 was a modification of the commission's oversight of grading. So that was already kind of started. That effort did not make it to fruition.
Commissioner Gooding?
Yes, thank you, John, for that. So maybe the best way to frame this would be that the commission would sort of chime in with a desire for our jurisdiction and our purview to be clarified or re-examined.
Yes, so staff, so then you're going to let the city council know that that's...
Yeah, we're going to revisit that with them and whatever direction they provide. You know, it's a little old, so everyone I'm sure will want to look at it with fresh eyes. And I would rely on the council to give direction procedurally, how much revisiting. You know, they want various boards and commissions, your board in particular, because of your involvement in it, to revisit that. Given that none of you were involved on the commission when that was previously redrafted. But the council had also had a number of hearings on this, and so it'll be up to them how they want to kind of pick it up and go forward with it.
Well, I think if you could carry the sentiment that our goal is always to do the best job and take very seriously the responsibility that we have, both to the city and to property owners, and that their guidance on this is really of critical importance to us.
And we'll do so.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Mackin. Anyone else? Okay, so our next of July 23rd is canceled, so may I have a motion to adjourn until our next regular meeting of August 13, 2020.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Can we have a voice vote, John?
Commissioner Gomez?
Aye.
Commissioner Gooding?
Aye.
Commissioner Mackin?
Aye.
Commissioner Patel?
Aye.
Commissioner Saison?
Aye. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you all.
Good night.
Good night.